Today I will be demonstrating the technique for complex composite filling on tooth number 4-6 cavity of MOL configuration. First step before placing the placement of the band and the wedge, you should place the depth grooves for retention. Then, with the flowable, I will just apply a flowable on the gingival seat. This is to provide a seal at the gingival seat area to prevent having a gap there. Of course, you should have tightened the band securely and use the right size of the wedge, pre-burnish the band and all to avoid overhangs or ditches. Just the gingival seat, not more. And then I will apply another mix of flowable over that to build my wall or the proximal side. To build the contact area. Okay, just dispensing the right amount. You can also extend that to build the back part of the lingual wall of the shell. I will remove the excess because I don't want the flowable to create my marginal ridge area because I have another plan for my marginal ridge area. So any excess I will remove it with the flowable. The point here is to create a good contact. Now I bring the big side of the burnisher and I just place it like that and I press against the wall. The goal of this is to have a tight and properly located contact area, not shallow. Of course, this added to the proper burnishing of the band plays a role in giving you a good contact. And then I just cure it, see this to make sure that I have no light contact. And then I continue the rest of the outer wall or shell with the flowable. Now, the reason why you should make all with the flowable because I don't want to have those ugly incremental lines that results from layering of the packable composite. So yeah, this promotes the smooth outer surface. And just cure that down. And later we're gonna work with packable. So the idea is that you build an outer shell, you transform a complex cavity into a class 1 cavity, and then you deal with it as it's a class 1 cavity. That's the goal with this technique. All right, so I grab a generous amount of packable composite, and with the burnisher I start to condense it from the downward to upward. This is gonna give me a round marginal ridge area. Okay, so I'm pressing from downward to upward. This gives me the nice folded marginal ridge area. So I'm sure you have seen pictures of people posting their work with this nice rounded marginal ridge. That's how they make it. So we don't use burrs to give our restorations a nice contour and natural anatomy, but rather we carve it at the carving stage. Okay, So pushing from downward to bring my margin ridge at the right height, and don't forget to blend the cable surface margin so that I don't have an ugly, an undesirable, ditch or a gap at this area. So it's important to seal the ends, and while doing so, make sure you have no excess composite over the tooth surface because we want to minimize the need for finishing. So just tap it down gently and then you blend it with the tooth surface. Get rid of any excess using the probe. Right after I cure and right after this stage, I am free to remove the band, the wedges and all, and assess my contact, whether it's good, assess my contour. If it's good, I continue, otherwise I repeat. But I just chose to, continue the rest of the filling with the bands are on. By the way, it's easier to work without the bands in the retainer. So just blending anywhere that whenever the composite meets the tooth, there has to be a nice continuous transition between them. And with no excess and definitely no gaps. You can also determine the height of the cusp at this stage, but it's not a big deal. However, it's better to have a higher cusp than the normal because with the adjustment, it's going to get lower. So rather than have it shorter or at the same height with the distal cusp, have it a bit higher than the distal cusp to give yourself the freedom to adjust and to modify. You can see I'm taking really good care and paying so much attention to doing this step before curing because I want to minimize the need for finishing. Okay, probably I'll bring my marginal ridge at a lower level here. Again, as I mentioned, we want to minimize the finishing. Yeah. So turning this complex cavity into a class 1 cavity is the way to go. Just cure it. And don't forget to cure the composite right after you remove the band, especially from the mesial and the lingual sides. Next, as I mentioned, we're gonna, you're free to remove the bands on the retainer and the wedge, or else you could continue, but it's easier to remove it and work. It's easier for the carving would be easier. I'll bring a generous mix and I will build the the mesiolingual cusp. Using this instrument is very handy. The less the need for manipulation of the composite, the nicer the final finish would be. So make sure you bring whole, piece of composite, and you rather than the need for layering, but because the more layering you need, the more incremental lines you will create, and the more the need for finishing. So tap it down, give it the shape of the cusp, and also orient it so that it's in the right, looks like a natural cusp. Okay, so don't just pack it here, and at the same time, your challenge here is to create the cusp inclines, the cusp bridge, and also this lingual groove that is separating the mesiolingual from the distal lingual cusp. Just tap it down gently, and yeah, this instrument, as I mentioned, is very nice, and if you have the smaller one, would be even better. So Yeah, positioning the cusp tip in the right buccal, lingual, and mesiodistal direction by determining the the dimension of your cusp slopes. Obviously, we have to keep that in mind. And it's like you're leaving a room for a mesial fossa, as you can see. The last thing that I will do is to fill out the mesial fossa. Okay, probably creating that junction with the distolingual cusp is the toughest part here. So you have to be really, you know, uh, careful. So applying another, because I don't want to have any deficiency here, I'll just place a small amount of composite, and I will try to deliberately recreate the lingual groove, okay? Or the fissure, I'm not sure. Is it a fissure or a groove? Anyway, whenever you're working at a distance that is uh, close to a tooth surface, it becomes stressing because you're gonna end up having excess over the tooth that you obviously have to take care of and you have to remove using uh, different techniques to remove the excess. But at the same time, if you don't, I mean, you don't do that, you're gonna end up having, um, you know, ditches, and that's the last thing we want. So I'd rather have a compromise and sacrifice with having accept a little bit of excess that I will have definitely to deal with later, rather than having a deficiency, if you know what I mean. So I'm just trying to recreate the nice, um, groove in there, and you need to keep an eye on that this lingual groove should be right in front of the buccal groove, so it shouldn't be like shifted. All right, shouldn't be. It should be exactly at the center and exactly pointing to the center rather than shifted mesially or distally. And it has to divide these two cusps, lingual cusps, equally. Or maybe the naturally the distal slope of the mesiolingual cusp is a bit longer than the mesial slope, which makes the mesiolingual cusp the biggest cusp in 4-6. Then you just cure it. I probably could have spent more time cleaning from and removing excess composite with bonding a brush and stuff like that. Yep. And then I will bring another pack of composite and I will tab it down just like as if I'm carving a class 1 filling, okay? Because the major parts have been already placed. I mean, the cusp done, outer shell done, mesial marginal ridge done. What's left is the class 1. By the way, I mean the grooves, the whatever is missing from the mesiobuccal, distal buccal, middle buccal cusp. But I will save the mesial marginal ridge for last, for dessert. This is going to contribute to the nice anatomy. Yep. Okay. So you see now the M shape we know of occlusal over 4-6 is becoming reality. Yeah, you don't need to react and overdo this carving thing. It's enough to resemble the natural tooth structure. So there are other criteria that are important to your mark in this task, such as the cusp position, the cusp height, the marginal ridge height, the contact having no having no ditches or excess, having smooth filling, smooth outline, a smooth transition at the cable surface margins, no bubbles, no deficiencies. Stuff like that matters more than the anatomy, just like an amalgam. Probably if I had a smaller plastic instrument, the carving would have been, more easy. But I try to keep the surface as smooth as possible by, working on one layer at a time. I mean, by eliminating the need for layering. That's what I mean. Yep. Blending the margins, cable surface margins, just like that. Very easy. You ought to have a really good vision when you're doing that. And probably you'll be sitting in 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock position if you're right-handed, and you will be using your indirect vision, the mirror placed occlusally, to have a proper idea about the position of the cusps, the position of grooves. Otherwise, it will be shifted. If you're relying on your direct vision, definitely your outline will be shifted somewhere. Yeah, we need to use the third eye, which is the mirror. So just stressing on the M shape, which is the hallmark of the 4-6 anatomy, the M shaped, the M shape. Okay, don't over make the grooves, don't deepen them too much. Okay, probably deepening them will make finishing hard and will affect the final outcome. When you have a smooth, when you have a almost smooth buccal occlusal wall, occlusal what? Occlusal anatomy, it is so much easier to finish and polish and stuff like that. Yeah, so I take my time in my carving, and that helps me cutting down in my finishing time. That's the trick. Just cure it completely till it's set. And right after this stage, probably want to remove the band and retainer because you're now safe. There's no way it's gonna break. And add the last portion of composite to replace the lingual fossa. Because we need to, when you're doing that, you need to access it from, the carving here is better done when we are approaching the mesial fossa from the premolar side. So since the retainer, the band is on the way, so it makes carving the the mesial fossa difficult and challenging. Just blend it down with the burnisher to the other cured composite. You know, carving the mesial fossa is important because we need to make it look like an actual fossa. It's gonna contribute to the anatomy and also makes the cusp incline visible. Yeah, just like that. However, I would rather use the small plastic instrument if I have it. Would be way better in carving. So I just removed the band and retainer because they were on my way. You see, that's what I want to do. I want to approach the mesial fossa from mesial side to give it like this, depression, so that it looks like an actual fossa, triangular fossa. Yeah, that's the dessert, the final touch of my carving. Definitely a smaller plastic instrument would have been more handy. But you gotta work with what you have, and in the exam, the instruments are way, better than the ones that I had, and so work technical was far more easy than practicing days. Yep. So I think you got the idea that I don't want to leave excess, and I want to, accomplish most of my work where the composite is not set. That's how the final restoration would look like. I'll just cure that down, and we'll head to the finishing. Okay. For the finishing, I will need the enhanced disc. First, I will start by adjusting my cusp height, my cusp position, my cusp slopes. When I say cusp position, I mean buccolingual and mesiodistal position. It has to be in the right position. Okay, so with the enhanced disc, I'll just trim away the outer contour, to this axis, obviously, to bring my, the lingual contour into the natural way, indirectly using the mirror looking lingually is so much helpful in doing that, and especially when I'm trying to, determine my cusp inclines. That's where at this stage, the axis cusp height becomes handy because I can't adjust the cusp inclines and cusp position if my cusp was already if it wasn't high enough, because doing this finishing definitely gonna bring the cusp to a lower position. Okay, so you need to have a room. Just bringing it looks like the cusp is too close, the mesiolingual cusp is too close to the distal buccal. So I just want to, separate them apart by increasing my distal incline of the mesiolingual cusp. That's what I'm doing. So I'm looking both directly from a buccal view and also lingually and see how it goes. All right. This is to adjust the mesiodistal position of the cusp tip. Okay, just to be clear. All right. And also I will need to create a groove between my two lingual cusps. All this work is done with the suffix, with the enhance. I don't like use the suffix that much. Alright, so I'm just here. Looking lingually, it looks fine, but looking palatal, it looks weird. So that's the benefit of double viewing, if you know what I mean. So here I'm just trying to push my cusp tip mesially. Okay? I realize it needs to be pushed mesially. Okay? By increasing my distal incline. That's the benefit of direct vision. Yep. And at the same time, I am modifying the buccolingual position of the cusp by what I'm doing here is I'm trimming away the occlusal third of my lingual wall. By doing so, I'm bringing my cusp tip into more buccal position so that it looks in alignment with the distal lingual cusp. Okay, usually when you're working with the universal retainers, because they're not pre-carved matrix or something like that, so usually they give you a straight wall that you need to deliberately turn it into something like a contoured kind of wall. The advantage of this is that I will have my cusp tip positioned more properly positioned, let's say, okay? By giving my lingual wall a proper contour, okay? Here I'm just stressing and trying to, define the lingual groove, all right, or the groove separating between the two cusps. Uh, I'm, I'm happy uh, to do this by now because, and I have the freedom to do it. I can do it. Why? Because my cusp height allows me to. So here with the needle burr or any kind of burr, I'm just modifying my cusp position mesiodistally, recreating the groove. Keep an eye on my cusp height. I don't want to turn it into uh, a small cusp or short cusp. Here also I have removed a bit of the excess on the distal lingual cusp, but be careful when you're doing that because we don't want to hurt the tooth. So have the burr only touching the composite, actually, not the filling. Sorry, not the tooth. Oh my god. Yep. Probably the enhanced would be so much safer option, but still you have to be careful and use it on a minimum speed. Okay. So here the groove between the two cusps is now, becoming more clear. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the giving the importance for things that matters, such as the cusp position, cusp height, cusp inclines. See? Now give it a bit of a rounding. Why? Because I can. Now here I placed a wedge to give me some space, and I will start modifying my line angle, my mesial lingual line angle, and my, marginal ridge, but stay away from the contact area. Okay, you can do this. What I'm doing here. I'm rounding my marginal ridge, and at the same time, I'm reducing the width of my contact area, but because it looks a bit wide, so I'm widening the lingual embrasure, and hence reducing the mesial contact width, because we have the contact contour, position, contact tightness, contact width, lots of contacts in the criteria. So shifting to a small kind of soft legs, but be careful, this can really hurt the gums. And rounding the mesial line angle that's, connects the lingual wall with the mesial wall, and rounding my marginal ridge so that it looks beautiful and rounded and all, so that it's not. I saw actually that my marginal ridge is higher than premolar. But you need to not overlook the fact that the wedge also brings the tooth superiorly. So don't believe everything you see when the wedge is on. Remove the wedge and then assess. So approaching the marginal ridge from the distal side, just to not so that I don't hurt the 4-5. Lower the marginal ridge and then rounding it with the soft flex. That's the way to go. This has to be made so carefully. Yeah, and then the suffix will do the rounding thing. Just like that. Yep. You see, after all this trimming my cusp, it still looks, higher, which is normal, a bit higher than distal lingual cusp. Okay. Now my marginal ridge height is fine. So I'll just round in my marginal ridge more with the soft flex, just like that. All right. Also, any excess on the cable surface margin can also be removed with the soft flex. Yeah, probably I have no excess because I have tightened the band. Yeah, but it wouldn't hurt to check. Yeah, rounding for the cusp. Looking directly in the mirror. The last thing we want is a square looking restoration. Yeah, seeing this makes me so happy. You know, it's just minor touches. I mean, it requires minimum finishing. I mean, I don't need to modify my cusp bridge, my cusp contour, you know. I mean, occlusally, it's almost non-touchable. I'm just working, on the outer circumference of the cavity where the retainer or the band was. Yeah, just rounding the cusp tip so that it's not so pointy. And let's check. Yeah, the enhanced points is lovely, but if you run it on the occlusal surface, just like that, it's gonna take care of, it's gonna give smoothness, but you have to use it with really minimum speed, because if you just press it, it's gonna eat the carving. I mean, all the anatomy will disappear because it's pretty invasive. But what can I do? I mean, this is the only finishing tool that we have that can, be suitable for the occlusal surface, but use it very, very cautiously. Now I will probably check with the probe the cable surface margins in case I have, catches somewhere. Yeah. If I catch, um, an excess somewhere, I'm gonna have to, use manual rubbing here to remove the excess. When I say manual, I mean don't run the burr, don't run and don't give any speed. And just like that, rub it until you remove all the excess from the cable surface margins. I mean, this is the safest way to remove the excess. Well, it's better to prevent it if I could have spent more time, and effort blending my margins. But, sometimes it does happen anyway, no matter how we try to avoid it. Yep, but make sure you're not scraping off the tooth, just the filling. Minor scratches probably will be fine. It's just fine. But try not to overdo it. You're probably gonna need to overdo it if you have gross excess, which you should have prevented in the first place anyway. Yeah. It's just manual rubbing and then just give it a wash, recheck with the probe, run the enhance, and you're good to go. I mean, use the natural tooth, the remaining natural tooth to guide you in the carving. Now I feel it's fine. I mean, I can't feel, I probably mesially, I have a bit of a catch here. See? You have to rely on tactile sensation. in order to tell whether you have an excess or not. Because if you, there's no way out, no other way. Yep. This manual rubbing, I'm using the pear-shaped burr to do that. Now, as we said, to finish up after we've created some kind of a roughness on the composite, it's wise to run the enhance. And yeah. Next, I will check the contact tightness and the presence of overhangs using the floss. And then I will finish the, with the polish strips run underneath the contact. And what else? And that's it. I'll just give it a good wash and we're good to go. There has to be a nice thick sound and the floss shouldn't come out shredded. If yes, then you should use the half of a, polish strip to grind that overhang away. Yep, that's just to show you. I didn't find any overhang here, by the way. Just checking my cable surface margins, and they're smooth. Contact tightness, contact contour, position, width, cusp position, mediodistally, buccolingually, and also my cusp height as compared to the distal buccal. It's a little bit higher, I mean not grossly higher. The cusp inclines are proper. The contour is proper. No bubbles, no ditches, no catches, no incremental lines. Margin ridge is at the same height. My cusp position, that's how you can do a self-assessment, by the way. The cusp position also, and the anatomy, the central groove is located centrally as compared to the adjacent. Yeah, it looks smooth. It doesn't have to be shiny, not a criteria. Look at my cusp position from a buccolingual dimension. It looks in alignment with the adjacent, which is good. What else? Probably that's it. I'm done. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.